Hi, welcome to the Coaching Game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Joshua Pollock. Hey, Joshua.
Hi.
I happen to know that Joshua wrote this fantastic book. He co-authored it, I'm sorry, let me not get crazy, called The Heartfulness Way, which immediately caught my attention after it was made aware to me. And it's like, it's sort of like, you're calling it heart-based meditation. Can you tell me a little bit about what is the Heartfulness Way and how did you get into it?
Okay, well, Heartfulness Way is essentially, it's a meditation, approach to meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say in a general kind of way, we can say that heartfulness is a way of living, right? Because these days we're living very hectic lifestyles, especially here in New York.
Really? Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's been a few years since I've been here, but it seems the same.
Yeah.
And that's okay, actually. There's nothing wrong with that. Not advocating, what my parents did when they went and lived in the middle of nowhere, in the wilderness.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not advocating that.
Okay.
But the thing is that these hectic lifestyles tend to be oriented, I think, towards maybe illusory values a little bit, maybe transient values.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes we lose track of the essential things. But the heart always knows what's important. And that's what we're doing here. We're connecting with the heart. And by connecting with the heart, you actually understand what's important in your life. And you're able to discriminate and make decisions saying, okay, this I should do, that I should avoid. And the heart has universal values. So that's something that transcends culture, transcends politics, transcends everything.
Hopefully, yeah.
Oh, it does.
And anyone who watches this show knows that meditation is a goal of mine that I never quite reach because of the thoughts and the craziness. But you have a marvelous quote in here that Patel, Mr. Patel, is that what you call, or Swami Patel, whoever, your co-author, says that meditation is like a meeting with spirit, which is your inside friend. And I said, oh, that makes it so much clearer to me, like why this is so beneficial to, first of all, meditate, and then secondly, to go a little deeper. Is it correct to say that heartfulness is a deeper meditation?
It definitely is a meeting with your own source within yourself.
Okay.
And we encounter this when we meditate on the heart. The idea is that, people look for divinity. And there are various approaches towards spirituality. And people look for it in various places. But the nearest place is inside yourself. People say that divinity is everywhere, so why not look in the closest place? So we turn inside and seek it there.
So what does it say about all our formalized religion and all of that? Are you saying that everybody can find divinity no matter where they are?
Yes.
Cool.
And the formalized religion's okay also. But this is like, you have vitamin supplements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So supplement whatever religious practice you're doing, that's okay.
Oh.
But supplement it with this approach. And I think it'll make you
Fantastic.
appreciate your religion more, no matter what path you happen to be following.
Oh, that's a great metaphor. Tell me a little bit about Kamlesh D. Patel, because he's your co-author,
Yeah.
and it sounds like at points spiritual guide, and you provide the questions, and then he sort of tells you how did this book
spiritual guide.
is it? Yeah. How did this come about?
See, so you asked me earlier actually how I started meditating in this way. So I found this in 2002. I was 22, 23 years old. Right? I'd already been meditating actually, but trying different kinds of approaches, not having much success with any of them either.
Me either. I know. I feel
I
that.
struggled.
I feel your pain. Yeah.
But this one I didn't struggle. I didn't
Okay.
struggle at all. It's just, even in my first experience, I gained more from that experience. It's the wrong way of putting it that I gained something, but I felt the change that I was looking for, and even more, in that first half an hour, and which I thought wouldn't come even after years, according to my previous experiences in which nothing happened, except frustration. And so, I was thinking, okay, this is just half an hour, so let me do it tomorrow and see what happens tomorrow.
Right.
And I still have that attitude because it's been 15 years, 16 years, and I think, my God, let's see what happens if I go for another year. Because it keeps on impressing me. So like that is just sort of leading me on this path. Now this tradition has, actually there's a sort of a spiritual guide, right? And it's a lineage. There have been 4 of them in this tradition. And Kamlesh D. Patel is the current one. He's the 4th one. Now, prior to 2014, when he assumed that role, he was just like an elder brother to me and to so many people, actually, because he was an aspirant like the rest of us. And, you know, I got to know him, and so many of the people who were practicing this method, they also knew him in a casual way, you know. But then his predecessor, you know, he announced him as his successor in this role. And then he assumed that role, and eventually, a couple years ago, he asked me to write a book on meditation. I thought this was a crazy idea because he's there. Why should I write a book on meditation? I mean, he's been meditating 40 years. And
right.
You know, like, this is
why did he ask you?
I don't know why he asked me, but in the end what happened was we ended up, I mean, he might have asked a bunch of people, but I'm the one who did it. It could be like that. But in the end what happened was we had so many conversations about this, what would end up being in this book. And those conversations themselves became the book. So it became dialogues. And dialogues, I say liberally, because dialogues meaning I ask a lot of questions and he gives a lot of, you know, not a dialogue between equals in the sense, in the way that the conversation flows.
But I don't think it should be. I think that's what makes the book so interesting, because it's like you're asking the questions that I want to ask. It's like if you both knew everything, then I'd be, well, I confess that I skipped the second chapter because it had a whole bunch of words I didn't get. But it's okay. I mean, if you want to know the whole thing, but I skipped a bit of that. But then I went on to the whole, so I think that's the perfect combination. The expert and the person who wants to be and become an expert.
See, this is why I'm a really bad salesman.
Why?
Because what I'm about to say is that, fine, this book is, you know, this book is great and all, and you'll understand a lot from reading it. But also you may be the kind of person who doesn't even care about reading it, you just want to try it. You can also do that.
The paths are many, right?
Yeah. I mean, you pick up this method from a trainer. There's so many, we have Heartfulness Trainers. We've got 10,000 of them, so they're everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
How long has Heartfulness been around?
In its current form, probably around over 70 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's in so many countries, like 150 countries or something.
Is this the first book that's ever been written
This is the
on
first book that's been published externally. Like, we've always had a few books that, you know, we print ourselves for people who are already doing it. But this is the first one, you know, for the world to see. So, so when I started this, it was through a trainer, Heartfulness Trainer. And by the way, training is free. There's no...
I read that and I go, well, that's got to be a typo. Really?
Are you kidding? You can't sell this sort of thing. I mean, everything else is already a marketplace. Should spirituality also be a marketplace? No. There's a quote in this book, Kamlesh Patel. Actually, we call him Daji. That's kind of a nickname. So Daji says, God is not for sale. And then he says, you know, if you could purchase God, you know, if you could afford the fee, then why would you even need him? So this is, you can't really, yeah, no, I mean, really, because then you would have, I mean, then if you could afford it, you know, then that would mean that it's something that you're above. Yeah? Okay. So it wouldn't make sense. And also,
I'll just take your word that it's free. That's good.
Of course, people don't appreciate things that are free.
So are there, so you said how many countries? 150?
Something like that.
Wow. And so there are people in the United States that are Heartfulness Trainers?
Yeah.
And you would just, at the bottom of the page, you're going to see, well, no, that's the book. How would you find a Heartfulness Trainer?
We have a website, heartfulness.org.
Okay, that's easy.
There's a section called Heart Spots. Heart Spots,
okay.
Right? You can find a list of people near you. So this is how I started. So what I'm trying to say is that the book is there, right? If you just want to try it in concert with reading the book, then that's also possibly. Because the basic premise of this book is that knowledge isn't enough.
Oh, no, it's very experiential, yeah. And I got that even when you were saying about your first time, it's like, I don't know what he's talking about. Sounds like it's really cool, but I think I'd have to go through it myself to really get the essence and the impact. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea, because this book isn't just a book that's telling you you should believe this or you should think like that or behave like this. No. This book is about a practice.
Right.
And this is a practice that if you incorporate it in your life, our claim is that you'll find changes in yourself. And that it'll come from inside. Because when you're trying to change yourself in any way, I mean, look, the self-help industry, like $10 billion industry, right? Now, that's okay, but thing is that when you try to change yourself, like for instance, when you're a kid, your parents tell you don't tell lies or be honest. But if that was enough, then the whole world would be honest.
Right.
And so, you know, there's an ancient story, an Indian story actually, where there's one person who's doing all these bad things, right? And somebody comes to try to stop him, and he says, knowing what's wrong, I yet cannot avoid it. And knowing what's right, I yet cannot live by that. And that's, I think, something that we can all recognize, this conflict within us. So when you try to change yourself, and you only have this idea that, yes, I should change myself, it's not going to work, because the roots of our thinking and the roots of our emotions and the roots of our tendencies of behavior, they lie in this sort of infinity, in this infinite vastness of the subconscious. Subconscious is inaccessible to us, right? You try to change something that you're not even aware of, it's not an easy thing. You can change thoughts that you're aware of, but the things you're not aware of, you can't change. So you need a holistic method that is able to, you know, act directly upon those parts of yourself which are inaccessible to you, subconscious. And meditation does that. So change ends up coming from the inside out. Inside out. And you all of a sudden notice, oh, I've changed in this way, or I'm starting to become less reactive, or prejudices are sort of falling away. So you just find these things in yourself, and they surprise you. Actually, you may not even notice it because it happens so naturally, but other people in your life will notice it. You know? So that's the thing.
Well, you touched on subconscious, and I know there's also the superconscious, and that's the ultimate goal, right? That's not attainable. I mean, isn't it an evolution and a constant fluid thing going on here?
Absolutely. You've read the book.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, you may know of it yourself, but the way you describe it
I had no clue.
Because, I mean, there it's described as a relative thing. You know, you can think of, I mean, okay, consciousness. Let's talk about consciousness in terms of, let's say, what we're aware of, right?
Right.
Well, your conscious awareness is like this, right? Thin layer here. Underneath it, sub. Meaning under, so you're not unaware of it, right? This, and then super, so above. Also, you're not aware of it. So there's a higher unconsciousness and a lower unconsciousness.
And you're just treading along in between.
Just there, right? The idea is to expand this layer that we have through both, like that, through both. But as you expand, now your conscious awareness is like this. Still something is above it.
Yes, always.
So always, in a sense, it is unattainable. But what your level of awareness is, your level of consciousness is, for somebody else, that might be the superconscious.
Okay.
Okay.
Relativity. I love it. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not saying I don't know. I haven't practiced, but I'm going to tell you what you can find in this book. And it's funny. You can find posture for meditation, but there is no posture for meditation. You can find prayers, but there is no prayer. It's really a matter of what's going to resonate with you. You do tell people how to meditate. You do tell them how to relax. You do tell them if indeed these are guidelines, right? So I mean, it's an I won't say it's an instruction book, but it's more of I don't know.
It's hard to define.
Is it an experiential book? It could be, absolutely, if you follow the exercises. Yeah.
And you see, that's the idea, because there are best practices. I'll say that very definitely. There are best practices in terms of posture, in terms of timings, in terms of many things.
Right.
At the same time, most people will only appreciate those by testing them personally.
Sure.
So you can give a range of guidelines to people. Say, okay, try this out, try that out. See for yourself. And they actually will come to the right conclusions.
And is there a right, for them, the right what's right for them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because when you were saying, I sat with Kamlesh, and it was the most wonderful experience. I'm going, yeah, cool for you. What about me? And then you want to find out, how is this going to resonate for me? But that is experiential. But here, I think it is hard to explain. Here, I think what you're doing is introducing the possibilities. Here are the opportunities. Here are the possibilities. Yeah.
That's very well put, actually.
Thank you. It took us long enough, huh? But
we finally got
it. Yeah, got
See
it.
What happens next?
And a couple of things. Well, my problem with the meditation is thoughts. Just thoughts. I can't stop them, and it's like I'm making dinner lists, and it's like, what is going on? I'm supposed to be meditating. there's a beautiful section on thoughts here, and can you kind of get into that? It's like, well, don't beat yourself up every time you have a thought.
Definitely not. The mind is an instrument. It's made to think. It's not an enemy. But it becomes an enemy when it's misused, or rather when it's mistrained. So this is about retraining it in a positive direction. Then it becomes our friend.
Okay.
You know? But it isn't. We should not suppress thoughts. See, people are disturbed by thoughts when they meditate, of course. And
right, you want to go to nirvana immediately. You want to go bliss, quiet, I'm up there. And it doesn't happen for me.
Right, but also in this method, that becomes the responsibility of the trainer. It's not the responsibility of the person who's meditating. To adjust the mind.
I like that.
No, it isn't.
Wow.
That's the responsibility of the trainer. And it works also. See, you know, you were talking about these Indian terms that it's okay, skip over that. But there's one important one. I mean, they're all important, actually.
All right.
It's okay. There's one that's called, this is based on a very old tradition called Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is, we know of it today as a series of 8 principles laid down in a very ancient treatise called the Yoga Sutras. Right? And the first, and they're sort of some of them are steps by which we enter into a state of meditation. Okay? The first 4 of these principles are all external things. It's how you behave, how you sit, how you breathe, things like that. But the rest of them are all internal, about the inner world. Okay? And this middle one, the 5th step, it's called pratyahara.
Is it the bridge?
It's the bridge.
That's
the one where you turn inward.
I did read a little.
Yeah. And you turn inward. That's the, what can we say, the bottleneck for most meditators, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is, okay, we can sit, we can breathe, we can observe our thoughts.
Right.
But turning inward, that's something that we have trouble doing. And these thoughts, when you're having so many thoughts, they're always thoughts about external things anyway. So that's because the mind is oriented externally. And the mind is tied to the senses, you know? And as long as the mind is completely tied to the senses, the mind isn't free. You have to have the ability to detach it from that, to go inward instead. Of course, the mind can also use the senses, but ultimately we're not either trying to be oriented completely towards the outer world, to the material world, or completely towards the inner world. You have to have the ability to be oriented, have a sort of 360-degree awareness, where there's this inner balance, this balance between inner and outer. And both are there. That sort of general awareness is there. But that balance doesn't come unless we can go inside too. So this is about learning to go within and finding this balance, because one of the spiritual guides of this lineage had created an analogy. He said a bird, it flies with 2 wings. Right? Now, in our lives, we also have 2 wings, the material and the spiritual. Now, if you only have one wing outstretched, you go around in circles, right? So similarly, we are oriented towards the outer world. Like I said at the beginning, where these sort of transitory values that you find because the world itself has this impermanence to it, as the Buddhists talk about so much, right? So we're oriented in this external way. Now we need to balance that with the spiritual side, with this inner orientation, and then we can soar. We have 2 wings outstretched. Also, it's not good just to go within and renounce the world. I mean, that would be denying the body and its purpose and its requirements. So you have to live a balanced life. That's the principle on which heartfulness is based, and it provides tools to help us achieve that.
You know what? And it sounds, at times it sounds complicated. So I want to find out, what were you doing? Were you bopping along going, oh, I'm looking for some inner guidance? I mean, have you been seeking this forever? Because I understand you have some other talents going on.
Talents? No.
No? I think I heard something about a violin, maybe.
Yeah, I played the violin for a long time.
But so was this a lifelong quest, or was this something that you just happened to find? Or
it's both.
Because I want people to be able to feel that, okay, you can start right now. Look, this doesn't have to be a stepladder. This could be the beginning right now.
A lot of people just stumble into this.
I would think so. I know I did.
And
I haven't done it yet, but I'm stumbling.
It doesn't matter. I don't think it says anything, whether you're consciously looking for it or not. I think this, you can call the spiritual urge, is universal. It exists in everyone because everyone has a soul. So that need is there.
Right.
And whether it's conscious or not is almost irrelevant. It becomes, sometimes people have no spiritual yearning whatsoever, but somehow some friend drags them along and, okay, fine, I'll meditate. And then they're like, oh. You know? So then they continue. Other people are, you know, they're searching everywhere, travel to the Himalayas, doing all sorts of things like that. And maybe they actually don't even find anything. So, you know, it's like that. For me personally, yes, I was aware that I had an interest in this direction. I don't know if it was genuine spiritual yearning or not. These days, kids are like, they're reading Harry Potter, right?
Right.
Well, we didn't have Harry Potter. I mean, I found all these, like, the Yoga Sutras. For a 14-year-old, it's sort of along the same lines. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I had an interest in that direction. You know, I read books like that and, you know, Lao Tzu and things like that. And at a certain point, I thought, these are great, but just reading about it isn't helping me. Like, I want to actually experience what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And just reading about it won't give me the experience. So I started, you know, trying a few things, and, you know, that's sort of how it began. That's eventually how I found this. And I found this really because of a chance encounter on the street. Because I just met somebody, you know, I was outside the store and I just got into a chat with someone. They happened to say, oh yeah, I meditate. And I was like, well, what is it? So I found it like that. So that's one reason for me that this book exists, because I kind of, if I'd missed that opportunity by 5 minutes,
isn't that amazing? Yeah, the universe is wild.
I want other people to have the opportunity to find it more easily.
The universe is wild. Well, and you know what, that's kind of what, I'm not sure who did what part of the writing, but that's what it kind of is indicative in here. It's like, it makes you want to try, whatever this is you're talking about, it makes, I want to try this. I want to have this experience. So that's what I would say, if for no other reason, you might want to check this book out, because it really gives you a pathway to maybe, you know, to have a whole different experience if indeed something resonates with you. Tell me, what's the difference between meditation and the meditative state?
See, there's no difference, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Meditative state, the way we're using the terms here, is just meditation is the act of meditation, right? You're sitting with your eyes closed.
Right.
Meditative state is a result of meditation, where you're able to bring that meditation, that state of meditation that you experience when you sit and meditate, you're able to make it dynamic. And now, though you're going about your business, though you're at work, though you're interacting with friends or family members, you're remaining in meditation, because that state now is dynamic and you're using that state.
Wow.
So that's what we're referring to as the meditative state here.
Okay, then for me, I would think that's monumentally different, because for me, meditation is sitting in a, you know, not in a lotus position, but just sitting and with your eyes closed. But if you can take that and bring it out and just carry it on, I think that's huge. But you're used to it, so that's cool.
Well, I don't think there's any point to meditating for its own sake. I think unless it has an effect on your life, 24 hours, then what's the reason for it? I mean, you can just
good point.
I mean, you can just enjoy it. You can enjoy it for 30 minutes or an hour, however long it is that you're meditating. But then also, it should do something more than that. And you see, because when we meditate and we derive all of these inner conditions, like, you know, peacefulness and balance, all these things, these good qualities, and it's fine, we can enjoy them. But then, if we make them dynamic, let's say you have this inner peace, and you make that dynamic, and your interactions with others now become peaceful, now you can actually help contribute to making a better world. Now you're acting from your highest level rather than, let's say, from lowest level, for instance. And so that's how we build a better world, in fact. So this change of the world, or at least within our small circles, can only start with ourselves. If you're violent in your thoughts, there's no way that you're going to be able to have a peaceful, relationship with the people who are close to you. That violence is always going to be coming out in some way, reactivity. So you have to solve that problem inside before there's any hope of solving the problem outside.
Okay, that's That makes sense to me. So tell me, how, I want people to know how this heartfulness training is done. Is it done one-on-one? Can they attend a class? Is it one-time only thing, or forever and ever?
How, it can be done.
And you're going to say, it's all right, but go ahead.
Everything. How do you know?
Because I read the book.
So yes, one-on-one.
Okay.
I think that's ideal, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Now, the training is the same, but sometimes it just helps people to be able to converse sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
And people like that. Other people don't like that. They want to just sit at home and never meet anybody. And that's okay too. There's also a possibility of doing this remotely, where you don't actually meet the trainer, but you still do this. And we even have an app for those types of
How modern,
people.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
It's called Let's Meditate. So that's a free app. And
Let's Meditate, okay.
so that's there. But generally training is imparted person to person, heart to heart. And also in groups. And training, we generally start this method by meeting a trainer or interacting with a trainer, whether in person or remotely, but a trainer is the one who gives you this method. And ongoing support is also there. They don't just start you off and, okay, see you.
Have a good life, yeah.
No, there's ongoing support. They're there. They're volunteers. It's not a profession. It's they have other professions, their jobs, families, etc. But they're volunteers. They believe in it, so they do it and perform it as a service. And you can meet them whenever you like. Every week, and that's helpful for a lot of people.
Oh, so it can be a one-time only thing? It's your choice?
Well,
or?
The recommendation is that it's an ongoing thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because, well, in the book, yes, because it gets wider and wider, and you get more into the process as you go along. So,
but also because I think you don't actually need to recommend that to somebody. You recommend that to somebody, and it'll seem like a burden. Oh, another thing to do. But I think it becomes that by itself. Because when somebody has a good experience in the beginning, then after some time, they think, let me go meet that person again. And they actually want that themselves. And unless they're actually wanting that experience themselves, I don't even think it's worth it. So, I mean, there has to be a lot of willingness inside to do this. You can't approach it with a sense of using your willpower to force yourself to meditate. In this book, Daji gives the example, you have, he says, like, if you're young, and you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something, and you say, oh, my darling, I'm using all of my willpower to sit next to you. I mean, what kind of relationship is that, right? They just
little
say
one-sided,
bye-bye.
yeah.
Right?
Oh, my
Same
goodness.
thing.
We are out of time, and this is
Oh,
fascinating. I am going to just recommend that if you want a really wild and crazy experience and a little inspiration as another way to do something, because I'm still, trying to do the meditation, I would recommend that you check out this book, The Heartfulness Way.
Thank
Joshua,
you.
I thank you so much. This was fascinating, and I'm honored to be with the person who actually wrote the first published book on this. Thank you for being a part of the game.
Thanks.